So perhaps for you that would be oneness with God. Perhaps a sense that light permeates this room, permeates your body, permeates the space. Perhaps you start to feel the inner bliss of meditation if you start to bring your attention deeper within. And see if you can tap into that all-pervasive presence of love, what you might call divine love. I invite you to release the past. If you find your mind is thinking about anything that happened before this moment, just take an easy breath and let all of it go. And then let's release the future so that there's only here and now. Let's let go of busyness and take some time for retreat to do nothing. And maybe you'll settle into the Course in Miracles line that just says, I need do nothing. Or perhaps you remember one of the Psalms. Be still and know that I am. Or be still and know that I am God. An invitation to take some time to connect to the divine in your own unique way. What would it mean to be in touch with that which is sacred right now? Or to be in touch with the experience of being in the presence of that which is holy. And what does that really mean? So how do we go beyond time and space and name and form and all the changing things of this world? And how do we find our own Buddha nature, or the Christ consciousness within you as you? Imagine as if the external world just starts fading away from awareness, as if you're in a cloud, like up here in the mountains. You might imagine a cloud, a mist surrounds this building, but then it starts to permeate into this room. It starts to dissolve away, the past, the future, the outside. And it starts to direct your attention inwards. Perhaps to your breath. But then even deeper towards your heart. And then perhaps even deeper to observing your own mind. Or even deeper to observing the space between your thoughts. See if you can prolong the silence between your thoughts. And then put your attention on the silence. Not the silence in the room or outside of the room. Imagine that cloud starts to surround your body. It gently brings peace into your heart. The cloud starts to even fill your mind. In Christian mysticism, it's called the cloud of unknowing, or a cloud of forgetting. If you're holding on to anything, perhaps an easy breath helps you to forgive. An invitation to take this time for you to contemplate, what would enlightenment be? Is it something you value? Is it something you prioritize? Is it something you think about often? It's an invitation to consider the highest, the deepest, that which is true and real. Not a philosophy or religion, but a direct experience, your own direct experience of truth. Not intellectual truth, not knowledge truth, as far as facts. But see if you can find the truth that you're aware. And let that cloud keep getting closer and closer to the very center of your being. I invite you to now turn your attention to your forehead. Focus on the space above and between your two physical eyes. Imagine that cloud surrounds your head and dissolves away the sense of your body beneath you. As if you're in a white cloud and all you know is you're aware that you're aware. There's a sense of I, or I am. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart, he said, the same I that I see God with is the same I that God sees me with. So find that I, the same I that I see God with, is the same I that God sees me with. In a cloud of unknowing, in a cloud of forgetting, all that's left is that you're aware that you're aware. Perhaps just settle into this one simple Course in Miracles line. Truth is. When all else fades away from your awareness, what's left? Truth is. So as we start to go deeper into afternoon and evening practice, we're going to start to direct the intense concentrated power that we're developing to place it upon spirit and to do it in a way where you're not going to fall asleep. The Hindus say, Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. You don't have to become it, you already are it. You don't achieve enlightenment, you realize you are enlightenment. So when the Buddha achieved that, they said, what happened to you? And he said, I woke up. He realized that his own awareness is Buddha nature. So it's not that you have Buddha nature, you are Buddha nature. Perhaps enlightenment is just sitting here now. It doesn't mean you're wearing a robe or that you have to shave your head or that you have to be vegetarian. It just means you're aware that you're aware. And you're resting in the sanctity of that, the profound peace of that. We're really finding the presence within you that is truly holy. Still perfect, still whole, still incomplete, still complete. As you put your attention in the space in your forehead, see if you can find the consciousness that you are, which is eternally pure, eternally free, and forever. Finding the you right here now. Perhaps easier up in the higher chakras. The you who is pure, free, and forever. And perhaps you'll affirm in your mind, I am spirit. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. I am not this body. I am not these emotions. I am not this mind. See if you can find the observer of your own mind, the knower, the witness, the I am presence. I am still as God created me, still perfect, still whole, and still complete, lacking nothing. Start to feel what it's like to withdraw from the external world. So sense your feeling of touch, the sense of touch. But then imagine letting go of the sensation of feeling and pull back up to the observer. Letting go of your need for physical sight and go back into the conscious observer. Pulling away from your nose and your tongue to find the one who's there before all of that. In Christian mysticism, they say we turn the light around. Practice turning the light around. So instead of your consciousness shining outwards into the world, imagine turning that light back inwards, up into your forehead. The Sri Atma Gita says, when your mind's light is steady and bright, all ignorant notions will fade out of sight. The false sense of ego will then disappear, and the world of appearance will bind you no more. Your mind will be peaceful, absorbed in the self. You'll look on all others with equality. Beyond good and evil, with ego dispelled, to nothing attached, you'll then become free. However, perhaps you'll observe you are free. You don't become it, just realize you are it, right here now. My experience is what we just talked about is really all you need to talk about, right? Just put your attention on the divine. At the same time, we have to create a lifestyle to do that. So this retreat is spiritual lifestyle training, where we learn to have a lifestyle based upon time to put the attention on spirit. So the first year you see Zazen, right? So we practiced that this morning, sitting Zen. It becomes a really powerful foundation to go deeper. So my experience of Zen practice, we almost always meditate with the eyes open, the attention always below the navel. You're right here now. It's completely non-theistic. Not atheistic, meaning there's no God. It's just that what Buddha discovered is he didn't need to believe in God to be free of suffering and to experience enlightened consciousness. He really just sat. So like I was saying last night, you might say the essence of Buddhism is reflected beautifully in Zazen, or just sitting. And the premise of Zazen is you don't meditate with a goal or a gaining idea. You sit just to sit. And when you're just sitting, it's called shikantaza, just sitting, you realize there's nothing you have to accomplish. Everything you want to feel is there. In our hypnotherapy school, we talk about core transformation, the core state. We say, how do you feel now? Okay, what would feel better? What else do you need? What else would feel better? What else do you want? And eventually you get to the place of saying, well, I guess I wanted all of that because I just want peace, love, joy, bliss, oneness, and divine guidance, right? Isn't that what we all want? If you just sit, it's right there. The problem is we don't just stop to sit. So invitation to consider how you could bring seated meditation more into your life. Next, studying with a teacher. There is something that's done in formal Zen practice that we're not going to do here. It's called dokusan, or private interviews with a teacher. But basically, for spiritual lifestyle training, I'd encourage you to consider the 3 jewels of Buddhism: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Buddha, there's many levels of understanding the word Buddha, but in this context, it's referring to having a spiritual teacher, right? Someone who serves as a guide to keep pointing you directly to truth. And if you don't have a relationship with a spiritual teacher, develop that, because if we try to invent our own path, we tend to go astray. So even though Anahat meditation is pulling from different systems, my experience is it's really its own system, but it honors the deep teachings of Zen, yoga, and you could say Christian mysticism. So finding those who can speak on these topics and guide you deeper into the deep teachings of the great traditions. So there's Buddha, Dharma, which are the teachings in this context. So having a set of teachings that you trust. For me, the Zen scriptures, the Buddhist text, beautiful. A Course in Miracles, can't go wrong. And in yogic practice, you'll see in the back corner there with the books, Yoga Darshan, or the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So if you're going to go really deep into any of these traditions, the Heart Sutra of Buddhism is perhaps the essence of Zen Buddhist teaching. A Course in Miracles, in my opinion, the essence of Christian teaching, although not every Christian would agree with that. And then if you're studying yoga, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So there's Buddha, teacher, Dharma, the teachings, and of course there's a lot of those, but I always like to get down to what is the essence of all the paths. And then Sangha, the community of practitioners. Right? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And that becomes a formula for spiritual lifestyle training, having that in your life. So studying with the teacher, academic study, studying the scriptures, studying the texts. Right action, we'll look at that maybe tomorrow when we talk about the precepts and the yam and niyam of the Ashtanga Yoga system. Basically learning how to live a life that's going to avoid suffering, because what happens when we're not conditioned this way, we're making all these mistakes. So if you're out there lying, stealing, killing, how do you sit and meditate when you know the police are going to come after you? Right? Just creating a lifestyle where you don't have to worry about all the karma that you've been creating. So the great masters give us principles that say, don't lie. And why? Not just because it's not good to lie, but because you're working to align your mind with truth, right? And if you split your mind to truth and untruth, then you're not in that state of your true Buddha nature. So we'll cover those probably tomorrow. Art practice, we could also get into tomorrow in our own unique way here, drawing sacred geometry. But however you, during your personal time here, express your own art practice, highly recommended. Body practice, we're doing a lot of that. We're doing 2.5 hours a day in my own practice, like Faith and I at home. Usually it's a good hour a day, maybe an hour and a half, spent taking care of the body in the ways that we've been doing here. Work practice. Again, I'm not making you work while you're here, but I did introduce to you seva, the idea of selfless service. Like, who would like to clean the mat? So really, you might just want to say, I'm going to get, like, before our yoga class, I went and got the vacuum, I vacuumed the floor. There's just this idea of I'm giving back to the community. I'm not doing it for myself. I'm making sure I'm part of the Sangha and contributing. Right? And again, we bring that into our life. Like when you just go to your job, right? You're doing it more selflessly. And then Zen ritual. This goes into ceremony and liturgy. And last night I remembered, I lost the train of thought. I was going to mention that Zen in many ways has become its own religion. You have certain robes, certain things that you do. I chose not to bring that into this, a lot of ceremony and ritual, because it really becomes its own religion. If you really get down to what is the essence of Zen, it's really just present moment awareness. John Dido Laurie here at Zen Mountain Monastery, it was back in the day when the Coca-Cola commercial would say, there's nothing like the real thing, if you remember that, something like that. He said, If you want to know what spirituality is, the essence of it, he said, just get real. Just be real. Daido was somebody, if you go to the monastery, you would see him driving a tractor, and people were like, that's so wonderful that you let like the locals, contribute here. Like, that's the habit. He's driving the tractor. When there were rats in the compost heap, nobody likes this story, but he was out there with a shotgun. I'm not totally condoning that, but the point is, everyday Zen, normal average person, nothing special. So sometimes when we get too into the vowed way of the monastic path, it starts becoming really special. But this is an invitation to not get so into ritual that you actually start losing yourself. Like when the schedule becomes a god. So I'm gently encouraging here. It's like we're supposed to be here at 1. It was like 1:06. We were getting started. I'm not saying you must be here right in the moment, but hopefully we'll start getting a deeper sense of why the schedule is so important. It doesn't let you think for yourself. At the same time, if the schedule controls us or rituals control us, then we're no longer being naturally ourselves. So the idea the Buddha talked about in your spiritual practice, it's like tuning a violin or guitar string. If it's too loose, it doesn't play the right note. If it's too tight, it doesn't play the right note. So I'm not being too rigid with us that you must be here at 1 o'clock. I'm gently encouraging it. And also, it's not like we're just lying down on the floor and doing whatever you want in the meditation rooms, right? So there's, in Kabbalah, you have these 3 pillars, but the 2 pillars, the rod and the staff, a pillar of severity, but a pillar of mercy. Right? And there's the gentleness, but also the strength that goes with it. So consider as we're meditating, you're peaceful, but you're also powerful. Okay, so this is just a little bit about the 8 gates of Zen, and I'd encourage you to consider in spiritual lifestyle training, which of these components do you bring into your life? Next, we'll go to the life categories prioritized on page 8. So those of you who've been through the school, or I'm actually doing every other Sunday night now, the Life Mastery Path online. Actually, this Sunday, I'll be teaching that class from here, for those who are here. We've done about 7 or 8 of them now. I plan on doing about 20 throughout the year. So you can find those at our website, instituteofhypnotherapy.com. But basically, I put the 5 main life categories here. And spirituality, again, spiritual lifestyle training is what we're doing here. I would encourage you to make that the highest priority. Some of you guys are learning about Michael Singer or Mickey. A lot of his talks I remember through the years, just put both eyes on God. Just put both eyes on God. And story after story about why seeking the highest is the most important thing we can do in our lives. Right? Christ said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all its righteousness, which are those precepts and principles we live by. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things are added on to you. So, gentle reminder, prioritize spirituality. Whenever I work with a client or a student on this, and we come up with the priorities, I've never had somebody disagree with me that spirituality is the most important. Then once we establish that, I say, okay, how many hours per day do you spend in your spiritual practice? And I don't mean that to sound condescending. I hear that a little when I say it, but what I mean is, like, if it's the most important thing for you, how much time each day is spent on it. So I'd encourage you, minimum 5 minutes in the morning after you get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, even before coffee or anything else. Get on the meditation cushion, right? Set up an altar at home, have incense, have candles or whatever you like, pictures of gurus and saints, whatever you do. But that's the very first thing. And then 5 minutes in the morning minimum, and then 5 minutes in the evening minimum. If you just bookmark the day with that, you're saying spirituality is the most important. I start the day and end the day that way. You find peace in the morning, you take it through the day. Faith and I talk about something like, as long as we have our sadhana, spiritual discipline, morning and evening, whatever happens during the day doesn't really matter, right? We'll handle it, we deal with it. But start with peace, end the day with peace. And then I often usually spend probably a good 2 hours every afternoon going into deep meditation as well. So the 5 minutes starts to build upon itself, not because you have to do it, because you want to do it. It becomes so blissful, you want to be on the cushion. At first, and we'll look at the Buddhist ox herding pictures probably tomorrow. At first, the ox, which is, you might say, your ego, it's so busy with the grasses of the world. But the more you train it to love meditation, you want to spend more time going inside. All of your knowledge, like the deep knowledge, the wisdom, who you are, your life's purpose, it's all found by going within, not by running around out there. Right? If we're busy running around out there, but we're not centered. Somebody said, it was Richard Gere, who was talking about some politician that we all know quite well now. He said, that guy has no center. You probably know who I'm referring to. But the president of this country, Richard Gere, was saying, that man has no center. Right? And then we're just running around doing all these things, maybe creating a lot of chaos, instead of being deeply rooted in the peace of our soul and having the divine guiding our life. So to me, spiritual lifestyle training is also learning to let your superconscious mind run the show. You've got a subconscious mind, your emotional mind. That's largely the inner child. You've got a conscious mind. That's usually the neurotic person in your head. Which of those do you want running your life? The emotional heart or the neurotic mind? There's something higher and greater than that we can call divine mind, higher self, superconscious, oversoul. The intention here is to help you to tap into that, and then you can ask and receive. You can literally say, who am I? Revelation comes from God to you, not from you to God. It's not a two-way street. You don't tell God who you are and how it is. You say, who am I? You receive the answer. How may I serve best? You receive the answer. One of my prayers is just, thank you, I love you, how may I serve you? And if you don't think you love God, you do. Because God is love, and you love love. Right? You love the experience of peace and love and joy and bliss. So we commune with it, we get in touch with it every day, and then, thank you, I love you, how may I serve you? And then you get quiet and you receive. As the ideas come in, I recommend writing them down. All right, so anyway, brief talk on prioritizing spirituality. These are the things that I personally do. Take what you like, leave what you don't. A Course in Miracles to me is an amazing source of truth. There's not a single word in there that I could disagree with. When I used to, because I was a religion philosophy major and I was arrogant enough to think I knew better, every word in that book I believe is trustworthy. So find those type of texts that you completely trust, because when your mind gets you miserable, there's better thoughts than your own thinking, and you can find those in those type of texts. For me, Zen practice is a big part of things. Yoga, of course, and we'll go deeper into yoga. It's not just the stretching. Yoga really, or yog, means oneness, not to unite. To unite implies one order of something is different from another order, and you're going to bring those two together. It implies, if you think yoga is, I'm a soul, I'm going to be one with God someday, you kind of miss the deep teachings of yoga and Zen practice, which is you're already there. You're right here now. I think it's in A Course in Miracles, but somewhere I heard, you don't have to go find God. She knows where you are. You don't have to go searching for it. It's right here. So yoga, the deep practice, what I really learned in India, was you just put your attention on the immortal, blissful consciousness in the higher chakra region. So I love Zen for the morning practice of getting grounded and centered. That's the descending triangle. And then I encourage you to start bringing the energy up to your heart this morning, but gently, not mentioning it too much. This afternoon when we sit, I encourage you to really focus on the heart with eyes open or closed. In the evening, we're going to close our eyes and we're going to work to bliss out. I'm going to guide you into the deeper yogic samadhi meditations. And after this talk, we'll go into the meditation room, have you lying down on the floor, and I'll just prepare you now a bit to move into somnambulism, samadhi, and usually out-of-body experience, but we'll get to that tomorrow. But today we'll practice somnambulism, very deep hypnosis, and samadhi, very deep meditation. Where hypnosis ends, as far as you can go with hypnotic teachings, meditation goes from there, the deep teachings on samadhi. But you will find you're going to fall asleep if you haven't developed Samyam or concentrated power. So before 1 o'clock, I will take us through the page here on Jiriki, which is the Zen term for intense concentrated power, or Samyam, the yogic term for intense concentrated power. Most people that go for hypnosis or basic guided imagery meditation never cultivate that. When you guys were saying you have trouble meditating, Samyam is the key, Jiriki. It's a muscle, and if you don't build it, you don't have it, and if you don't use it, you'll lose it. All right, so daily practice keeps the Samyam power really strong. And as maybe an encouragement for Samyam power, it's the idea that you put your attention wherever you want it to be. The main theme is to put it upon the divine. But in chapter 3 of the Yoga Sutras, called Siddhi Pad, the chapter on the yogic powers, all the psychic abilities, all those cool mystical things that you hear about, clairvoyance, clairaudience, out-of-body travel, remote viewing, all of that comes from Samyam power. If you study the Yoga Sutras, chapter 3, every single power, which is never the goal, they always say the powers are not the goal, but you will develop those by developing the intense concentrated power. It's all about, if you want to psychically read someone, you take that intense concentration and you place it on another person. And that's how we get to know someone, right? If you're with your partner, you're making love, you're together. If you're in there thinking and you're distracted, you're not there, right? If you want to truly know someone, you put your attention on them. In fact, there's an interesting in the Bible how when they talk about having sex, they say they knew each other, right? Like in Sodom and Gomorrah, they were knowing each other, and that was bad. But basically, to know who we truly are, and then to put your attention on what's in front of you to know that, not with your intellect, but with your intense concentrated power. So let's spend a little bit of time on that. Anyway, Zen is more of the descending energetic. Yogic practice to me has been more of the ascending energetic. I go to a Zen monastery, keep your eyes open, focus below your navel. I go to India and the Himalayas, the teacher there with his beautiful Indian accent, he said, close the eyes, focus on the self. I'm like, yeah, but Guru, I have this problem. No, close the eyes, focus on the self. Yeah, but what about, no, close the eyes, focus on the self. He was Guru because that's all he talked about. Gu means darkness, Ru means light. And a guru is someone who's leading you from darkness to light. And basically, that's all they do. That's when they're in that title, right? They're not doing anything else. Their whole mission, their whole existence is to guide seekers from darkness to light. So Anahat meditation, to me, is the balance of Zen and yogic practice. And it's rooted in the six-pointed star. So ascending, but then we come down to the shoulders, a descending triangle down below the navel, here. So we'll focus on ascending and descending energetics, and it's a balance that I've never felt from any other system. Zen got me grounded, yoga got me ascended, but how can you be fully grounded, fully ascended, with a fully open heart? For me, that's been Anahat meditation. And then studying scripture. So I invite you to make a list of the spiritual practices that you most resonate with, and then do them. Next, mental emotional health. Get therapy if you need it. If you're sitting in the meditation cushion struggling through emotion, yeah, you can work through it after 10 years in monastery. Or go get 10 hypnotherapy sessions and rapidly speed up your evolution process. Paramahansa Yogananda, who you're talking about earlier, he says, he was speaking about his path, Kriya Yoga, but the metaphor here could be applied to anything. Normal evolution is like the walking route through life. Eventually you'll be enlightened, but 10 lifetimes from now. Then there's some spiritual practice. Do some spiritual practice. That's like you're running. But when you engage the really deep teachings like Kriya Yoga or Zen or the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali teachings, Course in Miracles, it becomes a rocket ship route through evolution. So there's a beautiful Zen rabbi, he said to us, yes, we as Jews believe in reincarnation. He said, but only a fool waits to their next life to do what they can do now. So if you're very diligent in spiritual practice, they say you'll reach the highest states within about 10 years. And this is the motivation to be that diligent. However, the reason I got into hypnotherapy and breath work and all that was to clear the blocks faster. Okay, so can we run faster? Can we rocket ship route faster? Go get 10 breathwork sessions. When you sit in meditation, it'll be a very different experience. So clearing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So life mastery work, we have our whole life mastery course, hypnotic programming, super beneficial, and hypnotherapy, can't recommend enough. Physical health, so I personally kayak, hike, strength train with weights, and just the body itself, meaning like the body becomes the weight. yoga and Qigong practice. So I'm introducing you at least to yoga and Qigong here. Nutrition, just consider perhaps very pure eating like we've been doing here. Vegetarian usually. When I was communicating with the chef here, I was encouraging a lot of live foods and all the colors of the rainbow. If you want to learn more about that, Dr. Gabriel Cousins, Spiritual Nutrition and the Rainbow Diet. Also his book, Conscious Eating. I think I have both of those listed in the recommended readings in the back. Spiritual Nutrition and the Rainbow Diet. The idea, and I met Gabriel Cousins 3 times in his Patagonia, Arizona Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center. What a beautiful, incredibly beautiful being. He's still alive. He's in his 80s. And even when I met him, he was probably in his 50s. I mean, he was ripped. This guy was like so impressive. And he talks about zeta potential. The way water molecules take the shape of the star tetrahedron when they're highly aligned. When you fill your mind with negativity, the molecules don't align properly. Sickness develops. So the idea is to make your body a superconductor for divine energy. So what is a superconductor? When you put energy into a wire like these, they release heat because there's resistance in the wire. But a superconductor is like ceramic or whatever, and they cool it down like to below 0 or whatever that is, as cold as they can possibly make it. Then when they put electrons into the superconductor, there's no friction, there's no resistance. The electrons just keep going. They don't burn themselves out through heat. We want to be superconductors for divine energy. So when I have you guys doing all the movement, I'm like, shake it out, feel like no tension, no tension, no tension, right? Any of that tension is blocking. Imbalances like misalignments are blocking it. That's why chiropractors know, get us aligned. So consider as we're doing all these practices, superconductor for divine energy. Life force flows through, right? My background is Chinese medicine. We know, and Mesmer knew in the early days of pre-hypnotism, there's meridians, and Mesmer talked about this animal magnetic fluid, right? And all these Reiki, we all know, right, that when there's a block in the system, it's going to cause problems. The idea of spiritual practice is clearing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. All right, so that's part of the whole nutrition theme, is foods that are live. When you eat meat, it's okay. I'm not saying you should never eat meat. But meat is dead. If you have an overactive kundalini, way too active spiritual energy, they recommend eat meat to help to ground you. So if you don't have to, do your best to have like live salads, live fruits, all the colors of the rainbow. And you're filling your body with zeta potential. Remember to drink a lot of water. Fresh mountain water is very high zeta potential. So again, superconductor for divine energy. Plenty of rest and sleep. This mentions intermittent fasting. And again, I said water. And then healthcare. We have these wonderful items at the house: hot tub, massage chair, sauna, biomat, and Qi machine. If you haven't played around with any of those things, they're worthwhile investments for sure. Relationships, my main theme is only loving and harmonious and holy relationships. If you want to know the difference of what is a holy relationship, study A Course in Miracles, because it talks about holy and special relationships. Special is your mind, egoic-based relationships, usually based in fear and secretly hatred of the other person because you made them the source of your happiness. Holy relationships is I'm fulfilled, you're fulfilled, we're sharing in love together, right? It's not needy, codependent, and clingy. It's two beings who are highly aware, evolved, aligned with spirituality, sharing, rather than the special relationships, which again are codependent and clingy. So I'd encourage you to think of mastery in relationships, loving and harmonious. If it's not, red velvet rope, right? Like you're just not getting in. If it's not loving and harmonious, I'm not saying we push people away, but you have a certain standard, right? And what they call it in community like this is called satsang. It's keeping good company. Christ said, don't cast your pearls before swine. I think he was saying the same thing in a unique way. All right, but basically keeping good company, being with people who talk about God, who talk about spirituality. Where are we at? In about 10 minutes. Korean financial success, we won't go into, but you know how much stress there is, right, when you're struggling with money. So highly recommended. Do things that actually earn money. When I was in India, Swamiji, Swami Sham, he would say, We're here for enlightenment. We're here for self-realization. We're here for spiritual practice. You said, so anything else you're doing, be sure it's making you money. Like, if, it makes sense, right? If you're struggling financially, then how do you sit and be at peace meditating? To me, these are the top 5 categories. But when we prioritize spirituality, mental, emotional health, it lets the others fall into place quite easily. Let's take a moment and find the page on Samyam. If you find that, let me know. Thank you. All right, let's just read through these. Be sure you understand Samyam, because what's going to happen when I take you into somnambulism, samadhi, meditation in a moment, you're probably going to fall asleep. So when we, especially in the afternoon, coffee is one way to stay awake, a little chocolate if you need it, but honestly, Samyam power. When we practice yoga this morning, and I had you lie down in corpse pose at the end, I mentioned the term yoga nidra. Nidra means sleep. It's not samadhi. Yoga nidra is pleasant, it's hypnagogic, it's kind of like the deep hypnotic state. You come out of it, you go, wow, I was there, but I wasn't really there. Very relaxing, very wonderful, but it's a state of semi-consciousness. Yoga nidra is semi-conscious. Hypnosis, kind of semi-conscious. Samadhi is super-conscious. And the only way to achieve it is intense, concentrated power. So that's what we're looking at here. So when you start finding you're getting really relaxed, or you're starting to get blissful, we move into what's called Anand Samadhi. Anand means bliss. Samadhi means oneness. When you're feeling oneness with bliss inside, if you're not well trained, you end up drifting off into sleep. And when they say, okay, time to come back, you're like, wow, yeah, I was there, but I wasn't really there. With Samadhi, I'm fully there. You're fully there, right? There's your ego, your mind goes away, but you are fully there. Again, intense concentrated power is the way to do it, and that's what we've been cultivating. So why are we sitting this much? Many reasons. But again, Jiriki is a mental muscle you develop. And if you don't keep building it, you will lose it. Use it or lose it. Samyam is the term from Sanskrit, and Jiriki is a Japanese word. So Samyam is more the yogic term, Jiriki from the Zen tradition. Key components of Samyam from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Yoga Darshan, and its Zen parallel Jiriki, the power of concentrated mind. It's not just your mind that you're concentrating, because that implies you have to stop thinking. Put your attention where you want it to be. So right now, if you're meditating on the speaker, you would put all of your attention right on the person who's speaking. And if your mind wanders, you're like, nope, and come back, because this is a meditation, right? Every moment Zen, every moment is a meditation. So ways to define this, to understand it. Integration of dharna, dhyan, samadhi. Dharna in Sanskrit means concentration. Dhyan means meditation. And basically that's putting our attention on something, but not our thoughts, our awareness. And then samadhi is oneness, when you feel deeply connected to whatever you're putting your attention on. The real goal of samadhi, though, is putting your attention on pure consciousness itself, putting your attention on pure being, on the absolute within you as you. Okay, so dharna, dhyan, samadhi. And you can study this stuff more, of course, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But basically, those 3 things are Samyam power. Samyam is the combined practice of concentration, dharna, meditation, dhyan, and absorption or oneness, samadhi. When practiced together, they generate profound clarity and inner power. The term ekrata in Sanskrit is one-pointedness, and Jiriki would be a synonym to that. The mind becomes unwavering like a laser beam. The Yoga Sutras talks about you can be as small as an atom or as big as the universe as you develop your Samyam power. And I didn't get what that meant, because if you think you're a body, I become as small as an atom and I become as big as the universe, that's insane. Right now, take your consciousness and just put it like on the tip of your finger. Just focus in just in one spot on your finger. Just keep focusing right there. Notice how you forgot about everything else in the universe. Now expand your consciousness and remember the mountains all around us. Remember this house we're in. Remember the earth we're on. You can be as small as an atom or as big as the universe. That's your consciousness. You can contract it or expand it. Patanjali was not referring to your body when he said you can be that small. It's your consciousness that can be that small or that large. So the mind becomes unwavering like a laser beam if you want to focus right where you want the attention. The attention is going to be on pure consciousness itself as we start getting into the ascending path. Insight and direct knowledge, like I said, if you want to know something, put your attention upon it. Through Samyam on a chosen object, deeper truths, prajna, are revealed. This leads to intuitive knowledge beyond discursive thinking. So developing your intuition, your psychic abilities, tapping into divine mind is not listening to your own monkey mind. It's listening to that which is transcendent to your conscious mind. It develops spiritual power. Like I said, siddhis, the yogic powers, come from Samyam. The mastery of Samyam develops extraordinary stability of mind, which in yogic texts can give rise to the siddhis or the yogic powers. In Zen, Juriki is less seen as magic and more as the reliable strength of concentration that supports awakening. So again, when we go into deep meditation in the meditation room, you'll be lying down. I hope we don't hear any snoring. And if you do, it just means you weren't holding the intense concentration. I have a rule I've had for years in all my meditation yoga groups. If your neighbor's snoring, you're allowed to nudge him. Okay, so we'll give each other permission. If you're snoring, wake him up. Why'd I keep looking at Bill for that? Good. Application in daily life. The power of Samyam Juriki is not just for meditation, but for living with clarity, equanimity, and compassion. It grounds ethical action, creative work, and spiritualization. So when we sit and we focus below the navel, if you're counting your breaths, it would be like inhale 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, exhale 4. If you do anything else, let go of that and just come back to the simple practice. The ego can't stand it, right? You want to plan, you want to think, you want to focus on all the stuff you like. Let all that go. So there's just breathing and counting. Eventually, for those of you, if you're new at the breathing and counting, you inhale 1, exhale 2, right up to 10. But eventually you can let go of counting the exhalation, or you don't have to count the inhalation. So it'll be like inhale 1, exhale. Inhale 2, exhale. Eventually, it might just be breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Intense concentration just on that. Then beyond that, just maybe in, out. And then eventually you don't even have to think it. You're just breathing in, breathing out. You become the breath, or it feels like the breath is breathing you, or the universe is breathing you. You're not the doer anymore. But at first, you got to get all the attention into the breath. So count your breaths, and then eventually you can let go of the counting. Eventually, it becomes shikantaza, or just sitting. And breathing is happening, but that's just what the organism is doing. All right, and then wrapping this up, Samyam Juriki is about cultivating integrated concentration, meditative absorption, and direct insight until the mind becomes unshakably steady and luminous. And here's just a quick story before we wrap this up, and credit to Mickey, who told this story. There was a great god, the great god Shiva was like the sun, beautiful being of just pure light. And he said, "Who's my greatest devotee?" And he looks around, and there's this one man. He comes down as this beautiful being of light and says, "You're my greatest disciple. I'm going to give you a gift, a wish, whatever you want. This wish is granted. It's yours." And the man said, "Well, thanks, but I can't have only one wish. I need 2. He's like, "All right, well, okay, you're my greatest disciple. I could have 2 wishes. What's the first wish?" "Number 1, that I keep both eyes only on you." And he goes, "Okay, well, what's your second wish?" He said that so remember, this is Shiva as the light. So he's looking at the light. "I just want both eyes on you." "What's the second wish?" "That anyone who should walk through my shadow would be blessed." Right? The light's shining through you, and anybody who comes into your life will be blessed. So yeah, put both eyes on God. If you study Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment, And I never even read it. I just lived there for 5 years. I'm like, I know what's in there. He went into the woods, he meditated, he gave his whole life to God, and his company blossomed into $1 billion company. Like, he's a multi-millionaire. He literally started sitting meditation. But the divine ideas came in and he acted upon those. And then Spirit's like, you're building a temple. He's like, okay. You just surrender to the inner guidance, not the outer stuff that's happening, right? But letting the divine guide you. So both eyes on God, you listen, you get the downloads, you get the revelation, and that's what motivates you, right? So Anahat and all my books in the school, all this stuff really is coming from that place, not from Matthew will just decide to do this. It's like you listen, it tells you what to do, and you're just a servant to that point. Beautiful. Any other sharing or questions?